That's great. Thank you, Randy, Jamie, and Rick, our guests today on the monthly town hall for associates. My name is Tom Sun, the chairperson for the associate committee for the SPGA section. It's gonna be a great Q&A session today. Thank you for joining us today. I just want to give a quick introduction to Randy, Jamie, and Rick before we start. It's going to be there's so many awards, accolades they received in their careers. I'll make it really short. Randy's been in the golf business for over 30 years. Currently, he's a founder of Randy Chan Golf School. He's currently the board member, chairperson for the teaching committee, co-chair for the Coaching Teaching Summit. Randy has always done great things for our section. Twice he was named SPGA Teacher of the Year. So many accolades over his career, and we're so happy to have him today. He'll be moderating the call, asking questions to both Jamie and Rick. Let me introduce Jamie, a similar story, over 30 years of experience in the golf industry. Currently, he's the CEO of Virginia Country Club, is a member of the SPGA Hall of Fame, 2 times SPGA Teacher of the Year, 2 times SPGA Professional of the Year. Currently, he's taught 24 PGA, LPGA students, mostly since juniors. He's a current coach of 2021 Tour Player of the Year and FedEx champion Patrick Cantlay. So we're so happy to have Jamie with us today. And lastly, not but least, Rick Sessenhaus, teaching over 27 years. He's a founder of Sessenhaus Performance Systems since 2000. He's an expert in mental performance, has a doctorate in applied sports psychology, authoring a book called Golf, The Ultimate Mind Game. In 2021, he was named the SPGA Teacher of the Year. And as we know, Colin Morikawa's swing and mentor coach since Colin was 8 years old. So it's a great pleasure to have all 3, Randy, Jamie, and Rick on the call today. I just want to have a quick question before we start for Jamie and Rick. We're proud to have SPGA start a mentorship program for all associates within the section for all 5 chapters. We're proud of that, and wanted to ask you, Jamie and Rick, who are your mentors? Your mentors today? Were mentors in the past? Just to understand who are your mentors when you were going through your careers.
Rick, you want to go age before beauty? Why don't you go first?
Okay, sounds good. So I was super fortunate. My first golf job, I was 16 years old at Griffith Park Golf Course in Los Angeles, and Tom Barber, PGA member, son of Jerry Barber, PGA champion, was my first mentor for sure. He was my first golf instructor. I worked there for 7 years. He hired PGA instructors and professionals. So he started along. It was very, very influential. And then when I moved to more of my teaching, a gentleman by the name of Ted Eleftherio, who worked for the PGA for a while. He was a teacher up at Shoal Canyon Golf Course in Glendale, and he was very influential in helping me get my teaching business started. I liked how he did things. He was very professional, energetic. So those are my 2 mentors that really, really helped me get started.
Thank you, Rick. Jamie?
Yeah, I learned to play golf from a gentleman named Chuck Wallace around town, and it's an interesting thing. He didn't teach me left arm straight or planes or swing or anything of that. He taught me how to play tactical golf, pin right, drive left, how to flight the ball into the wind from the time I was a really young kid. And he was older than me, and he got me in the environment of playing golf at an early age competitively to try to make a score, which going back, those are our fundamentals still to this day, and those were our fundamentals then. And then everything that's happened with swing and mind has kind of come later. And then I would also say that, Mr. Venturi was really helpful. Mr. Venturi started teaching John Cook when he was about 14, and I got to kind of be the wingman on that. I transferred, he transferred John Cook to me when he basically retired from coaching. Mr. Venturi learned how to play golf from Byron Nelson and Ben Hogan. So I feel like I got some of golf royalty in that spot. while Byron and Ben were very different, a lot of things were very similar, and Mr. Venturi was kind of their key student. Mr. Venturi was always somebody I could bounce something off of when he was alive. And I also got to watch him teach John all the way up to, you know, when John was the #2 player in the world and he was kind of getting transferred over to us. So obviously that was really helpful. We've had people throughout the country, throughout the world, and throughout the section. Eddie Marins would be another perfect one. That's always kind of looked after me and basically told me when we were doing something right, that we were doing a good job, which is probably the most important thing I think we can do with our students, and certainly done with our teachers. And then the last two categories would be all the professionals in our section or all the other sections that I've got to collaborate with about golf, including the couple hundred people that are traveling on the road with us. I know Rick and I got to spend some time at the Ryder Cup, and while we had a lot of fun, it was also professional and educational about what we were doing with our players, and we were trying to win as a team. So that's been really helpful. And then last but probably not least, anybody that I've ever coached that's tried to play golf, especially the 24 PGA or LPGA Tour players that we got to work with. And as you said, a lot of them since they were juniors, that I've learned more from them than we've taught them. Good question.
Thank you, Jamie. Today I was just mentioning to Rick and Randy before the call, I was on the CMAA fall conference, and Jim Nance was one of the guest speakers, and he talked about how Arnold Palmer did not like to have a presentation per se, but he always wanted to do a Q&A session to articulate, to share his story. And I think today's platform of Q&A with you and with Jamie and Rick, with Randy moderating, I think it's a great platform for us to learn from you. And I'm personally very, very excited for this session. So without further ado, Randy, you take it over, please.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Welcome, everybody. I appreciate everybody that is on this call. That's kind of the first step to to learn about, you know, what's in store ahead of you. I'm going to get kind of, I like to get in this kind of situation, kind of up close and personal. We know their accolades. It's out there. We know what they've done, but I don't think anybody realizes how long that we've been doing this. I've known these two gentlemen for a very long time. We've been in the PGA for a long time, and obviously we see the fruits of their success right now. But it never started that way, and that's where you folks are starting right now. So, you know, we're going to play a little game right now. I know Jamie likes this kind of stuff, but it was what I call remember when, right? So we know now what's going on, but remember when, remember when we had to walk 10 miles in the rain and the snow, uphill, to open the golf shop up at 5 o'clock in the morning, to pull carts out and so on, when we started out as an associate, or back then we were called apprentices. So let's start with Rick there. Remember when you started giving out initially where you first started, when you decided, wow, I think I want to be a golf professional, right? Like many of you on this call. Give us some stories of when you were going through this and going, I wonder if this is the right choice. Give us a story about that, and then tell us, back then when you decided, okay, what was that motivating decision? Said, yeah, I want to continue to become a PGA golf professional, and what motivated you?
Yeah, I'll go back to the mentorship with Tom Barber. When I was a 16, 17, 18-year-old, I was, encouraged and allowed to teach some of the junior camps with some of the more experienced teachers. And I loved in that moment to see the smile on somebody's face when they hit that great shot. And even though I loved golf, that was my first interest, like, wow, I could do this? You mean for a living? Really? And so that accelerated after I played college golf, and professional golf wasn't going to work out, is that to be a golf professional for me was purely just one avenue, which was coaching. I respect everybody who has to do the things day in and day out to make that experience for the golfer high level, because we want them to enjoy it. I felt my role and my best use of my abilities was going to be coaching. And so then I was given an opportunity at Shoal Canyon Golf Course in Glendale, where they were saying, yeah, you can start your own business. You're going to be an independent contractor. We're not going to market for you or something like that. You're going to have to do your 20 hours in the shop, and you're going to open 4 days a week and open the doors at 5 a.m. and leave at 2. And then you can teach however you want. And so those were some long days, yet I felt it was like a very fair way of allowing me to make mistakes. And there was a lot of mistakes made back then, not only in my teaching philosophy, but also marketing and having a business, which I thought it was just give good golf lessons and that was your business. And I found early on that it was much more than if that player got better. So my thing was, back in the day, it would be to balance out the responsibilities of opening the shop, working in the shop, and then also being able to now start a new business was challenging, yet to be honest with you, it's exhilarating to have my own, I could create what I wanted to. So I'm very fortunate for that way of starting.
You knew that in the early stages, you wanted to go that coaching route back then, right?
Yeah, no, it was just, again, I didn't realize I was such a people person until I worked at Griffith Park Golf Course as a shy 16, 17-year-old, and you're selling equipment to adults, and I got outside of my little comfort zone and outside of my shell, that I go, wow, I actually enjoy interacting with people. And then to be able to actually coach something that I loved, and then seeing they're passionate about it, it's very, that passion just kept going.
So I know, like with Jamie, because I've known Jamie very long too. In fact, I've met him when you're doing what you're doing now, which is very rare, by the way, of being able to run a golf course, be a CEO, a general manager, and be also a very, very successful teacher and coach. I know you kind of started more in that operations side, right? Give us your story back in the day, if you can remember, Jamie, if you can remember.
Randy, I got a lot of offense if you want to get going on this game. Okay. Anyways, I'm a Long Beach guy. I guess that's probably the best way to say it. And we grew up in this city and grew up playing in the city. My parents basically used the $25 monthly ticket to drop me off at the golf course. And that's how we learned how to play. And it was cheap babysitting for them. So my dad would give me a couple bucks in the monthly ticket in the way that they said. This one's a good one for everybody to swallow. I started sweeping the bag room or the pro shop and the area around the pro shop at Hartwell Park in order to get golf balls so I could hit them. And not ironically, at that same time, Rudy Duran was teaching this kid named Tiger Woods, who's about 15 years younger than me. So he was just a baby when I was a young kid. And then I worked at El Dorado Golf Course washing dishes. And then I went to work at Rec Park, working in the pro shop. And then I went from there to Virginia Country Club as an assistant. And then I went back to Skylinks and became the head pro there when I was like 22 or 23. And then a year or two later, I got the head pro job at Rec Park as well and ran both of those golf courses. So my formative years of learning, one of our things to do is I would go to the course every day, or if somebody invited me to play, or if I was playing in a tournament, and I also wrote the 10 or 15 things that I liked about the place. And unfortunately, the 20 or 30, 40 things that I didn't like about the place on a piece of paper from an operations standpoint. And then from a teaching standpoint, I like to sit on the driving range and look at everybody on every mat or in everybody's stall and imagine if I was going to give them a golf lesson, what I would actually tell them. And one night at Skylinks, probably 10 years into my journey, maybe 12 or 13 since the Hartwell day, I was on the driving range and I remember there were 36 mats and I had given a lesson to everybody on that mat. So you have to put miles on your skis. For those of you that are young professionals, the only way to learn how to teach is to do it. I asked myself a lot of times, what did you get to the table? Obviously, I think we got it made at golf pretty quickly. I didn't really have a lot of swing instruction before I was shooting around par or breaking par. But as far as the teaching part, I think we always have the eye in order to do that, but your eye gets enhanced. I think I just said this at the coaching summit like a week or so ago, but if I go on vacation, which is very rarely, there's people probably listening on that call thinking you should go on vacation more often. I know that I'm saying that kind of in jest because I know one of them is for sure. But when I get back from vacation, my eye is a little bit off and I need to enhance it again and make it go again. And the last part of it, I was going to say, now at the tour level, like while we use TrackMan and Foresight, I don't look at our players' ball flying, or I don't look at the machine. I can tell what it's seeing by the way that we see it, and that eye gets enhanced. And from an operations standpoint, tying that back together, all those things that I liked at a property that I saw are part of our policy and procedures manual now that we're back at Virginia for the last 22 years as the CEO. And then all those policies and procedures that I learned from sitting on the driving range over the years are basically our teaching manual.
What made you decide that you want to be a PGA golf professional? Because obviously in today's world, you know, say, what is the advantage of I can do all of that you said without, you know, having to be a PGA member? What was the thing that motivated you to do that?
I had a poli-sci teacher named Dr. Mabbitt, and you know, I was telling him that I wanted to be an attorney, and he said, well, you have to pass the bar exam. And I said, well, wonder if I have to be a doctor? And he said, well, you have to go to medical school. And I said, well, wonder if I wanted to be a golf pro? And he goes, can you make a living doing that? And I said, well, that remains to be seen. At this point, I'm not. I'm basically able to pay my apartment and my, you know, my gas bills by doing all the things that I'm doing in the golf business. And he said, well, is there an accreditation? And I said, yeah, you become a PGA member. And so that all seemed like something that you should do, like passing the bar exam to become a lawyer or going to med school to become a doctor. And basically that's what the PGA is for us. It's a higher learning program in order to make us better at what we do. And that's one of our greatest passion projects now, is to make all the people on this call realize that if you do your process and you study and you join the association and you play the game the right way, you can be successful. And then the bottom line, as far as all that you do and all that you get, kind of comes together.
Thank you. So one of the questions that I always had is you know, as being a full-on PGA professional, a lot of us kind of start losing our games. Like we all of us here on this call, you know, started this whole profession because of the love of the game to play. And as well as myself, you know, I felt like I was a pretty good player back in college and got out. And then realized, like Rick's, like, okay, we tried to go the tour route. That's not going to happen. I know, Jamie, you're a good player. Heard a lot of stories about you and your game, but we failed to kind of do that now, right? It's kind of hard. There's more priorities involved to play the game of golf. How do we do that? Like Dr. Allison Kirk does a nice job of balancing that whole thing out. What would you say the best way to do it, and why do like I don't see enough of us out there, especially teachers and coaches? I mean, I know the challenges there. I want to hear from your perspective why it's so hard to try to keep that game up and play out there and teach.
I'd like to answer that, but Rick, why don't you go first, okay?
Yeah, no, I think it's something that, from a time commitment, I have 3 kids, a wife, and all that, we can go with all the time stuff. But I find that anytime I do play, and I'm actually playing Monday, everybody, so that'll be a good thing, that I'm a much better coach after I play. And yes, the swing and all that stuff, but because I specialize so much in the mental game, I never want to come across to my players as positive thinking, do all that stuff. It's easy to manage your emotions, right? And then I go out and play and I 3-putt the first hole and I want to explode. I want to be able to relate to my players. And by playing, that's the easiest way to relate to them, right? We're going through what they're going through. We have our expectations and our goals and all that stuff. So I make a point to play, I'm not going to say a lot, but I play enough to keep, like Jamie said, the eye for the swing. For me, it's also the emotion and the focus and the up and down roller coaster of a round. Is when I experience that, I am such a better coach the next week with my clients, because I can instantly go, yeah, I know what, you know, we're now doing our 19th hole stories and stuff like that. So I think it's important because we always want to get better at something. I know as I play, it's funny, I just ordered something, one of the speed stick type products, because I played last time. I go, man, I'm not hitting that on my shadow anymore. This is unacceptable. So I have a goal, right? And so I think having the game as that central part has always been motivating to me, but it makes me a better coach.
Yeah, good answer, Rick. That's nice to hear. For
Jamie.
Yeah, from my standpoint on too, like, don't feel sorry for me about not getting to play enough golf, but I've played enough golf in my life, and not sounding cynical because I can sound like that sometimes, but I don't really need to make another card to prove to myself that I'm a good player. A couple things about it: at the end of the day, for a living, you know, I'm the CEO of a country club, and for a living, I coach golf on tour, and that involves traveling. And when I think about all the time, like, underneath my surfboards in my garage are my golf clubs that were packed up from Ireland, because right before the Open Championship in Ireland's the last time I really played any serious golf or got ready to play golf. And I think I have one of those golf games where I can hit balls for a couple of weeks and kind of get ready to play, and I can go play. But at the end of the day, if you really think about it, the last couple of years, have we really been able to do that? I have a set of golf clubs in my office right behind me that I played golf with the last couple Saturdays. When I sum it up, probably in the simplest part, and this is a little bit about Patrick, and I think you've watched All Quacks Patrick on TV. When Patrick was about 15 or 16, and by the way, I'm going to use one cuss word here, and I taught him how to, so I guess that's my fault. So I was making these 15 footers, and he was sitting on the chair by the side of our putting green, that which is still out there. And I'm rolling these putts one after another, 15 feet right down into the hill, and they're breaking to the left, and they're going right in the middle of the hole. And I started to explain to Patrick what I was doing with my hold with the club face through the stroke, you know, and they were going in one after another. And I said, this is what I'm doing. And Patrick said, Jamie, I don't give a shit what you do. I want you to work on what I'm doing. Okay, let me play. So at the end of the day, like, and Rick will tell you this, like, it bothers me when I'm on tour and a tour player coach hits a ball. Like, our job is to coach golf. You know, I haven't seen Bill Belichick kick any field goals. You know, our job is to coach golf and not to play golf. And that doesn't mean we can't do it. And maybe if I slow down in my life and golf becomes a priority, but at the end of the day, going back to the surfing, and Randy and I, you and I share that in common. The surfing is the one thing I do where I don't think about the country club, and I don't think about players hitting 5 irons from 205 yards off of hanging yards. I just surf. Golf used to be that to me, and I can't do that anymore. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded, but I think that explains it.
No, that was good. And I guess from that already, that's the question, you know, your coaching abilities because where you're at. But I know with a lot of people, when I first started doing this, but, you know, so to say that it's be able to at least it's kind of like what Rick was saying. It was to play and, hey, I can do this, so that's my credibility, because I don't have any credibility in until we get to your guys' shoes. So I just want to kind of see how you folks, you know, handle that kind of situation, because the one thing that I'm unfortunately seeing is like people are getting to the game because they want to play. And as we get into the industry longer and longer, that kind of starts subsiding. We don't play as much. And I'm just making my goal personally is like, I got to remember why I got into this game, and that was playing this great game. But you're right, Jamie. If I had a choice, I'd rather, and the surf was good, you know, forget about getting on the golf course. So thank you for that. One of the things I know people would love to hear, because it's something like you folks have had a great experience with like the Ryder Cup, you know, just the inside kind of stories, the experience and what that was like. Both of you were there. I've heard some stories in other of our group sessions that we've had, Jamie, and not with Rick, but if you guys can share that experience with us from the coaching side, from the player side, from the fan side, now that we had fans there, you know, being on American soil. What was that like for you, Rick? Was this the first time? This is the first time that, you know, you did.
Yes. So it was the first time I was at a Ryder Cup, and obviously first time Colin's been at a Ryder Cup. And I mean, overall, again, blown away by the experience, absolutely loved it. So grateful for it. And I think as a coach, I was just being a sponge on many fronts. One, it's a team event. Two, you know that the crowd is going to have a big effect on it. And I was just kind of just on the outside seeing how is Captain Stricker going to get his team ready. And again, and I'm just a fly on the wall. I didn't have much more than 3 sentences that I said with Captain Stricker. But what I was impressed with is that he trusted his players to know that they already know how to prepare. We didn't have to have a big song and dance and do extra preparation. He goes, and this is the vibe I got, was like, you guys are the best. You know you want to win. Let's go. It wasn't about motivational speeches. It wasn't about over practicing. And so I appreciated that, that vibe early in the week. And then I think, you know, the main thing that Colin and I spoke about was there was going to be a different energy from day one. I loved, I have a video of following Colin and DJ onto the first tee on a Tuesday practice round, the first practice round. And just as they get onto the tee, USA, USA. And this is a practice round 3 days before it's going to start. And it just made me go, could we get too emotional? Could we get too psyched up? Could we get too positive? Could we get too excited? And the answer is yes. And so that was kind of what Colin and I just kind of had a discussion with, is that, do we want to be the type on the third hole and we make a birdie to get psyched up? And now he's not that type. And he said, no, that's not how I would normally play in a big event. Yet I found it interesting looking at other players and how they reacted to the crowd, and like a Justin Thomas. I mean, he wanted that energy, right? And he played fine. But that's what was fascinating with me, is that I'm always looking at situational awareness and environments. Do they change somebody's behavior, which now changes their performance? And so I was just soaking it all up. The last thing I would mention is that it was great to be in kind of this pod system and being able to get to know Jamie more, and also being able to see Dustin Johnson, how he prepares, and Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele, we're all in there. And just to see the calmness of like a Dustin Johnson, who I was with him pretty much the whole week. Nothing bothered the guy, nothing. And I'm going, wow, that's a skill. That's a skill. And I believe Colin is one of the best at that also, but I really appreciated that end of it. They all hit great shots, but I went in saying, how do they perform? How do they behave? And I believe Captain Stricker really set them up for success that week. But it was, again, a thrill that I'll never forget.
That's cool, Rick, to hear you say that. You know, for us in watching it, like, we were on a roll and a run there. You know, this is the 4th Ryder Cup that we had been to, and the 2nd President's Cup. But coming off the end of the year, you know, we're off this huge FedEx Championship and a win the week before that. And starting with Memphis, our guy was just played so in the pocket, and he had basically been in the pocket all year long, even when we had a few bumps. So we're very process oriented. I've spoke a lot about this, but at this point, I don't even have the whole thing in perspective, because what we've really realized, how process oriented we are. You get so much adulation because of the good play of your player, and your player gets some more adulation. And even talking to Pat about it a little bit, when I won't compromise our attorney-client privilege there, but we're into the quest, and the quest is what we've been talking about so far in this phone call. So that was just taking our process, which we would know was working, to Wisconsin and doing our stuff. We do know from match play that I like the word warrior. You know, with Patrick, it sounds corny, but we've tried to build a warrior. He's a super honest, super calm, super comfortable kid that is very, very tough, and he wants to win. And we're trying to enhance that all the time. And that's been installed in him since he was a young kid. And in match play, you can get even more primal on that, because you're not trying to put a score up. You're just playing one hole. We partnered with Xander, who is, you know, Patrick and Xander can basically finish each other's sentences. And, you know, they have very similar games. We spend a lot of times with those. We've got to, you know, spend a lot of time in the Schauffele camp. So they get those. So I knew, like in foursomes or 4-ball, if they played together, they were going to play great. And they did. I thought that the captains from Steve on realized that they had players, and all those kids we had grown up with, really, with Patrick. They felt like, you know, Patrick's buddies, and I had watched them play AGGA or junior golf since they were young guys. And if you think about it, Dustin was the oldest guy on the team, but, you know, Jordan and JT and Colin a little bit younger, but Xander, all those guys, they kind of grew up playing golf together, and you could definitely feel the chemistry in the room as far as that goes. And, you know, these are all Tiger babies, and Tiger had a lot of behind the scenes influence. Rick knows this. He was texting and sending stuff to the team all the time. Fred Couples was in charge of our pod, and he's our longtime really good buddy. So we felt like we had good chemistry on that. And he watched Patrick play every hole and Xander play a bunch of the holes. So the groove was good there. I thought the coaches got along beautifully. You know, we all stayed in what they called their bubble in a hotel, and we ate and, you know, basically had a beer or two together every night, and, you know, talked about a lot about golf and a lot of laughing and giggling, and we didn't take it too serious, but we all went to work. And then just the highlight I can tell you is we went out early almost every day in our matches. I think it was the job of Patrick and Xander to get out and put up a point early. And they did the same thing in their singles match. We went out twice. And I know that when we walked off the range, the team's goal was to get 20 points, which I've never done before. And they got 19, and they didn't want to let up, which I think was really beneficial. And then lastly, if you haven't been to the Masters or a Ryder Cup with your PGA card, you're doing yourself a disservice. You cannot believe the emotion at either one of them. But I would say the emotion at the Ryder Cup is more so patriotic for our country. And ironically, it ties back to when we played at Liberty National, the tournament before Patrick won Cabes in the FedEx. We kept looking at the Statue of Liberty, and we were trying not to think about the Ryder Cup because we hadn't qualified. And then when he won Caves Valley, he got put on the team, and it kind of went from the Statue of Liberty to, you know, that night in the team room with our arms around each other holding the Ryder Cup, which was, for somebody that dreams very big, sometimes you can't even dream that big. I think you can see the emotion and hear it in my voice talking about it.
Yeah, so we see a lot of the other celebrities from the different sports. I know was it Michael Jordan, or do they come in and do any kind of, like you say, a little rah talk to the group, or it's just kind of hanging out individually?
They didn't do that. I mean, they hung in the team room itself. I think probably behind the scenes, they had a lot of stuff, and everybody has their ways that they get motivated and who can reach out in the inner circle and talk, but we tried to keep it as business. And I know Rick and Colin do a really good job of that. And, you know, the players did their job and got themselves prepared and then got themselves ready to be. I think the novel thing that happened the whole week, Randy, is I made Rick have his first beer that he's ever had on the road, and he had it together with me. So I thought that was a big step.
See how good PGA mentors, what they could do for your life.
I thought you would list me as one of your mentors. You didn't give me that.
There we go. That's what you got out. That was your highlight, Rick. I had a quick question from Anthony Leone to you too about this. How much of your work with Colin, Patrick, is mental versus technical versus strategy? And would it be the same with amateur novice players?
Rick, why don't we do this to flip it up? Why don't you let me answer for you and Colin, and you answer for me and Patrick, okay? You ready for that?
Oh boy, okay.
Because I already know the answer kind of, and you kind of know the answer a little bit there too as well, you know?
Yeah.
You want to go or you want me to go?
I'll go. Well, I would, my guess would be that on a week that they're out of sight, okay? I would say Jamie is 80% mental, 19% strategy, 1% physical.
Yeah, I would say those numbers are pretty close. I would say did you say 80% mental? I'm going to
strategy anyways, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to call it 80% gig, which is GIG, which is our vibe, just the way we act with each other, which it's all one encompassing. So am I sitting down and reading him, a quote, from somebody? Probably not. Not a lot of pep talking going there, but we know just by looking at each other what else is thinking, and him and the caddy do an amazing tactical spot. And the mechanics and the rhythmics of the motion, while they're 100%, I think we're minimalist in the way that we talk. Rick's been around me when I'm doing warm-ups, and Patrick's super efficient, and we're super efficient in the way that we go about it. And I would say with Colin that Rick is 90% mental, 5, 6, 7% tactical or moving around the golf course, and maybe 3% physical. And to answer his question the way he started it, I would say in our practices, probably the percentages go down or go up as far as the procedure goes, but we're more trying to just keep them in their lane more than not. And you can watch Rick and Colin walk together, and you can tell they're big brother and little brother, and you can watch Patrick and I walk together, and I think it's the same thing. And I think everybody at the highest level or on tour knows that's that deal, and nobody gets in our way. And we don't say a lot on either portion of us. Would that be fair, Rick?
Definitely. And, you know, and I've appreciated, you know, Jamie's insight a lot, because I had worked with a couple professional tour players before Colin, but this is a whole different ballgame for me. And so being out there, I felt fish out of water, I'll be honest with you. And, but I've always believed that, you know, I'm there for him, and I'm not there to get distracted. I have to focus just as much as the player. Been super fortunate that Colin's caddy, JJ Jakovic, from a strategy standpoint, has been immensely important, which takes stress off me. I don't know these tour courses. He does, you know, and so it's been a good team synergy on that. And I've told people before, I think, you know, JJ's become a second coach, and we have that trust and bond, and we talk, you know, off site also. And yet it's interesting, because we are trying to have them peak for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I've made a few mistakes. We've done pretty well. Obviously, Colin's had a good start to his career, but we have certain, we'll call them rules in place, right? After Tuesday afternoon, there's no more mechanical talking whatsoever. We've obviously already had practice rounds on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a pro-am. We want to build back into competitive side. Him and his caddy, we do some fun up and down games throughout practice rounds to keep his competitive sharpness going. But it's me basically, in a way, vibing. Is Colin in the state that he needs to play in for that week? And for the most part, he always is, but that's my role to kind of pick up on that, but not add anything to the equation.
Randy or Anthony, by the way, Anthony, you're such a resource for the section. Thanks a lot for asking that question. If anybody doesn't know Anthony, please reach out. He'll help you become a better professional. I know he has me, and I know he has Rick. I was going to say, on what you say, the vibing portion of that, that's such a big deal, you know, that you clicked when you go with it. And I also want to emphasize that the caddies now are better than ever. You know, Pat's caddy was a really good collegiate player. JJ is a good player. JJ actually worked for one of my tour players beforehand, so we've known him for a long time. They're all known commodities, and the caddies are more professional than they've ever been. And then I call it the watch syndrome with Patrick, meaning Patrick's got a nice watch, and when he's done with the round, if the watch isn't put on, we're going to hit some putts or chips or balls. And all he'll say to me is, very rarely chips, but he'll say he led the tour in scrambling. So without sounding pompous, I know that sounds pretentious, but it's the reality. But if he doesn't put the watch on, he said, let's roll a few. Or if he doesn't put the watch on, he says, let's hit a few. We do, but it's a few. I would say people didn't really believe this, but I would say from Memphis through the Ryder Cup, we never hit more than 50 balls a day for the whole time. And we didn't work on anything different than we worked on really since he was 9 years old. Everything stayed exactly the same. And my job to say it in a fresh way so he hears it. And he almost knows what I'm going to say beforehand. And occasionally say, what ball is that one? And I tell him, and he shakes his hand, and that's that. Never an argument. So it's a pretty good, easy gig, but the gig's been built as a pyramid with all the bottom, you know, really solid. So the top is just adjusting from time to time.
When the both of you got, you know, realizing that coaching, teaching, and getting to coaching was going to be your gig, if you will, was it going to be always focused on, you know, taking it to the highest level and focusing on that better player to get to the tour? Or was there a point where, because there's a lot of questions, obviously, with the amateurs, they're just trying to get the game. That's why Anthony, you know, like asked all these questions, as well as to me as well, because we're from the player development, getting that novice, the beginner, the never played before, to get into the game and just enjoy the game from that standpoint. Again, Jamie and I have had this approach. The approach is pretty still, you guys always have that goal in mind, that what is the road and how do we go about doing that to get there until you get a name, because there's a lot of names that are listening here that do not have that name yet, and they're working towards it. Can you give us?
Yeah, I wanted to coach everybody, like I said, and in a weird way, I miss coaching Mr. and Mrs. Haverkamp hitting fairway woods off of, the 3 woods off the ground. I miss that, and don't get to do that much. I get in our crew at Virginia Country Club with our culture, with our good professionals here, to mentor them a lot about what they're doing and get to look at video and get to watch them teach. And they don't mind me stepping in and saying something from time to time, but I wanted to coach everybody. But I also want to coach on tour. This has been said, ad nauseum, but somebody told me a long time that that nobody's ever going to, play on tour out of Long Beach. Nobody had done it before we started to do that. And, now look, there's been over 20 people that have done that. And I wanted to coach on tour. I went on tour for a couple of years without really having a player. I went out there with John Cook and Mark O'Meara and Gary Hallberg, and they occasionally got let me tell them that was a good swing, but I was basically watching the way it was done. And in those days, there weren't very many coaches on tour. Now there's more coaches than any other portion of thing. Guys are traveling with their sushi chefs, A funny story on that is one of our peers, one time I asked him who his stable was, and he told me that he had a certain player from 75 yards and in. And I said, well, what happens if the wind's blowing? Like, who coaches them then, the 76-yard guy or you? Meaning there's a lot of specialists. So I always wanted to do that. And then I think getting to do that is the evolution of what we said 3 or 4 times. It's the evolution of as our processes got better. And the process is a lot easier to build players from the time that they're kids into tour players than it is to get that. Our phone rings all the time with people saying, hey, can you come help us? And very seldom do we ever stop and even listen to that, because I don't know if I can make them better than they already are. Where when you're building a 15-year-old, you're like, well, this kid's got great potential. Lastly on that, the most fun time of it is when they're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old and it isn't a business yet. And they're going from regional to sectional and starting to qualify for US Opens. And, I've had 4, if you count somebody that I've coached for a long, long time, that's as old as me, be world #1 amateurs. And that's the fun time when they develop into that, because like now you got something, now you get to go to the next level. When it becomes a business, it's still fun, but it is a business.
Right. Yeah. I think early on, I loved just being around that golf geek, right? That wanted to back 27 years ago when I started, you don't have YouTube, you don't have that, but they're reading their magazines and what do you think about this, Rick? Because that was who I was, right? And I love that. And to this day, I love working with passionate golfers. Is my first, if you want to say level of golfer, it's passion first before it is what age or anything else. My passion is the junior golfer who has aspirations to play college golf, knowing that it's much more than the mechanics that are going to get them there. And that still to this day is the sweet spot for me. And now being able to be along this journey with Colin and how he carries himself, and he becomes now a mentor and a model for these younger kids. Guess what? They listen to me even more, which is nice. And so I take that role very, very seriously. I grew up in a very sports-minded household. My dad was hard on me, and that's a good thing in some cases. So I have that sweet spot for them. So back to, did I want to work with a tour player? Yeah, I think that you have that in the back of your head, but my goal was to work with as many really good juniors and college players as possible first. And that's how I built that, along with an expertise, which, to share with everybody, I think has helped, is that I have an expertise in the mental side, which is where my passion's at. And I love talking about that. And when you have an expertise and specialty in that, you have, and I mentioned this at the teaching summit, you have less competitors. Okay. People will seek you out because that niche is we are looking in this specialist zone. So that's one advice I would give to all of you, is that having a tour player, of course, gives you name recognition. I've had unbelievable opportunities that have been brought my way, yet I've worked my butt off and I keep learning and I keep pushing. And, Colin has big goals ahead. I have to be a better coach every single time that I show up too. So I've been fortunate to work with a lot of passionate golfers that have pushed me to help them.
That's great, guys. With that said, you talked about, Jamie, how you learn from, most of your learning has come from your players, right? How much you've learned from them. Can you give an example of those type of things that you've learned from Colin and from Patrick, or from everybody, like you said, that you learned from out there?
Well, there's no one way to do this. I don't know if I like method teachers. I'm at the point where I've seen about 10 different methods go through and then kind of go in and then go out a little bit. If you watch the entire Ryder Cup team swing, you know, Colin, DJ, Brooks play with the club closing and then holding the club off on the way down. You know, Patrick plays with the club neutral to the plane line, orthodox to the plane line. Xander plays the same way, but with a much longer arc. Jordan plays with the club opening into the top of the backswing. You know, they all kind of do it a different way. So I think I learned that you've got to figure out from their anatomy, from the way that they work as an athlete, what the best way for them to strike it is. And then you got to go in that area and you got to shore up any weaknesses as far as that goes. For me, obviously, it's easiest to play with a orthodox motion that you don't have to change. But gosh, watching Colin, you know, control his golf ball the way he does and be the best iron player on tour right now. Or if you see DJ in one of his practice sessions, or you watch Brooks in those major champions, maybe it's not orthodox to play with the club closing to the target line. Trevino did. The time I spent with Mac O'Grady, he said, don't ever change somebody that's close to the target line. So the point being is there's a bunch of different ways to go about it. You got to find out what exactly works right for the players. If I have a couple issues, or not issues, I've had a couple setbacks in the game. It's when I've let a player swing the way that I thought they should swing, and they've talked me or themselves into swinging a different way that hasn't been as effective, and I haven't laid down in front of the bus. And I can come off as chill surfer guy, but I can also be pretty adamant and, you know, be the boss and say, you shouldn't do this. If I had to go back and do that again, I wouldn't have let them change. It is really hard to change your blueprint. I know that for sure. And then the swing and the stroke and the pitching, as Rick said, is about 3 or 4 or 5% of the equation at the highest level. I'm going to argue that being fresh would be number one, and that's mind, body, and spirit. I'm going to argue that being healthy, mind, body, and spirit would be number two. And then all the elements that lead to that, which would be sleep and nutrition and the way they travel and the schedule and so on and so forth. I know more about that than ever. There's more experts on that than ever. People say, well, it takes a village to do this. It doesn't take a village to do this, but I think our job is to know 100% of the answer and give them the right answer when they ask us, or say you don't know and then go to try to find the answer with them. And sometimes that takes some. Patrick's injury is a perfect example. We went to a lot of doctors till we rested Patrick, and then rest was what made him healthier. And then building him in a physio way so he could function every week, and building a schedule with him so he could perform every week the way he's performed was definitely the way that it should be. So as you hear in that answer, there's a lot of experience in that. And I don't care how good your eye is or how good your instincts is or how good of a young player you were, because I was a pretty good young player. It doesn't have anything to do with the time that you get from watching that, and you have to spend a lot of time. Good news about golf is the more time that you spend quality-wise, the better you learn. Bad news about golf is it takes a lot of time to play, and I would say it takes way longer to learn and coach, and especially when you factor in the mind and all the other things that I brought up.
Right.
Yeah. So Rick, from your side, yeah, from the mental side, what have you learned a lot from working with Colin?
Oh, well, a tremendous amount. And I think a word that Colin and I use a lot is curiosity. Is I learned early on to put my ego to the side as a coach because I made plenty of mistakes as a coach. And I told Colin from a very early age, if I don't have the answer, I will find it for you. And I think that built trust with us, is that I wasn't just going to, half give him an answer because I wanted to come from me and I'm the only coach. And that's why I say, like with JJ's caddy, I mean, I rely on JJ's eyes all the time now because I don't see every shot like him. And so the curiosity is something that is about learning, and it's about putting the ego to the side, and you're going to make mistakes, but you want to figure it out. And I've always been a curious person in my coaching. And the mental side of, I get to see Colin, when we debrief after tournaments, is I do want to know what his mindset was. I want to know what triggered an Open Championship win on the final day where he's making all these putts. And because I want to learn it, so we don't forget it, Colin and I don't forget it, but I think that's going to be helpful for information for some of my other students. So curiosity as a coach, curiosity as a student, I think is one of the #1 values you could bring.
Yeah.
Randy, I apologize to interrupt, but it's been so much fun just listening to every word from Jamie and Rick. But we have 10 minutes. I know you guys have schedules after this call. So I want to just jump in here real quickly and ask a question that I wanted to ask before we end this call, is relating to what Anthony is asking. This platform, the Town Hall platform, is about educating associates. And for those young associates, young members out there, so Jamie and Rick, what advice would you have? What is one thing that you want the associates or young professional members to know so they could continue with their careers and have a successful career like you guys have had?
Go sit on the drive.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, go sit. Randy, come on, you were not. Okay.
It's not my list.
Good question, Tom. Okay. Go sit on the driving range and watch people the way they go about it. Go to the chipping green and watch people the way they go about it. Go on the putting green and watch the way they go about it and figure what you would do to fix them. It's free. It doesn't cost anything to do that. And then watch as much golf as you can watch. College golf, LPGA golf, PGA golf, Champions Tour golf, and watch the players the way they go about it in order to be efficient and economize their score. And the more that you can see it in person, the better you're going to be. And you're doing yourself a disservice when the West Coast comes around here and the PGA Tour is playing, and you don't go to a couple tournaments and pick a couple guys to follow and go to the range and do all that and see it at the highest level. I think that's the most effective and most efficient and the most valuable proposition you'll get for the least amount of dollars. You got to see it to watch how it's done, and then you got to figure what you would do if you get the opportunity to do it.
Right, and all along those lines, to be great at your craft and your profession will require time. And I think, Jamie and I have built systems, if we want to call them systems, where it's one thing that leads to another. It's another. We don't ignore something. We as coaches want to be great. We want our players to be great. Requires a lot of dedicated time. There are no shortcuts on it. And so I'm very adamant that, I've been doing this a long time and I've worked really hard and I have been mentored and I've asked questions, and it's fortunate, with the PGA. And again, I'm biased that the Southern California PGA has some of the best coaches and teachers, is we get to go to a teaching summit and hear these great coaches and what they do and pick it and say, hey, how can I make more of that mine? That's what I've always enjoyed throughout the years is being able to learn from the best. And you still have to make it your own though, and bring your own personality, your own identity to it. And you'll do something even better than I will. And I want to learn from you then. So it's, but it does take a lot of time, and there's things that you're going to be outside your comfort zone. I'm going to go back to when I started doing the teaching business, man, did I make mistakes. First website and this and that. I threw down so much money, but I never got away from trying to be the best coach I could be, which is the craft. And so, keep pushing yourself to be the best coach or the best, merchandiser or the best general manager that you can be. And that requires time and effort.
I'll give you an interesting one that I thought that I took from the Coaching and Teaching Summit. And Randy, it's been a pleasure to do with this. I wanted to thank you for being such an advocate for making people better at their craft, and Tom, you as well. I know you're both, coming from the same tune there. So thank you for that, gentlemen. But after this 5th annual teaching summit, Randy gives me the autonomy to put together the agenda and figure out who we're going to bring. And everybody that we asked has said yes. I've had one person tell me no, and they're coming next year. And so, we've got World Golf Hall of Famers as keynotes. If you go back and look at the YouTubes, it's been amazing how successful. The big blowaway on that is these teachers who are making, 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 a lot of times for outings at different places, come to this for dimes on the dollar in order to speak. They put their heart and soul into their presentation. They're all different. Everybody learns from them, and then they stay. or they're there for the whole time, I was blown away. You know, I've got to speak a lot of those because we, you know, and you got Jim McLean, who's been to more seminars than anybody in the world, and he's sitting there taking copious notes. So it takes a long time and you got to work at it. It doesn't happen by accident, but you do. I like the idea that if you work at something really hard, you got the opportunity to be great. And if you're in love with it, you got the opportunity to be great. If you do it, definitely can happen. Rick and I are living stories. And last thing I wanted to say to you, Rick, what a fantastic year and career this young man has. And you've done a great job with him. And I get a big smile because you and I are both, you know, West Coast PGA guys from Southern California. And I feel like we bonded because of that. But I'm also so proud of what you guys have accomplished. Congratulations. Good on you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. That means a lot. And again, very, very fortunate and grateful for that. And you have, as you mentioned with, you know, the Long Beach, you know, like it hasn't happened and you've paved that way. And that helps a lot of other players now believe that they can accomplish their goals too.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's getting me a little teary-eyed right now.
You're teary-eyed, Randy? Yeah.
Before,
did your white claw go down the wrong tube?
All right. So before Tom rudely interrupted me because I was going to get to that question, I had a question just before that, leading into the question he was going to ask. But wait a minute, I forgot. Oh. So you're talking about, you know, I just heard systems, I heard, you know, like methods, and I think people get kind of confused with that. We talked about this at the summit about a process, right? Enjoying the process. Everybody has a process, or maybe you call it system, whatever that is. Because I learned that from you, Jamie, you know, when you did that, your presentation on one of these summits with the wheel and the spokes. And, you know, I did my thing with the bowling ball, and that didn't work. But all my students are real healthy, and you know that my bowling ball process in filling the hole. But anyways, with that process, with all the associates, again, getting into the business. Yes, we want to be methods, but we do want to start a process by coming to these summits, by learning from you guys, picking what you like, and creating that type of process that whether you're a novice beginner or even all the way going up to what you have right now as a touring pro, that process is still the same with all of you. And that's what's neat about listening to the both of you talk. So I guess from that standpoint, there is a couple of questions. Do you see, Tom, are there any questions from
Randy, while you're looking at that question, I wanted to say something to that. You know, personally, we live in a modest home, but my toolbox is like the biggest farm in the world of stuff that we've learned in order to help people. So if that's reflective of what you are, you got to build your toolbox so it's huge so you can use it, because everybody's different. They think about it different. They go about it different. Everybody's like they say like a fingerprint, and you got to figure out how to work their fingerprint, and you need a big toolbox to do that.
Tom, do you have any questions from the group?
No, it's about 5 o'clock now. I know Jamie and Rick have previous engagements. I think I just want to say that we're so fortunate to have all three of you in our section. You guys are legendary members, instructors, coaches, teachers, mentors, role models. The fact that you guys, are able to spend this 1 hour with us today, it's been great for me. I'm sure it's been great for everyone else who's in the call, and it's gonna be great for those people who are gonna be watching this recording in the future. So I just wanna, from the bottom of my heart, thank all three of you, Randy, Jamie, and Rick. You guys do great things for not only for a section, for the great game of golf. And this is a great experience for me. I learned a lot today and had a lot of fun listening. And so thank you. And hopefully everyone on this call has enjoyed it as well. And hopefully you'll have another town hall next month as good, or hopefully, I don't know if it's going to be better than this, but so if there's anyone who has comments or questions before we end, please feel to do so.
And that's one last comment on myself is these two gentlemen here. One of the things about the greats, and I made this comment again at the summit, is that they're willing to give back their time. I mean, these two are probably the busiest guys that you'll ever see right now, but they still make the time. When I've called Rick to join our committee, he said, yeah, I really surprised, but I think that's what the greats do. Jamie's there for everybody. I mean, if you ask him, he's there. He's there for you, and he's nothing but giving back and making all us better, but really for very unselfish reasons as well. So thank you guys. That's one of the other common traits that I want everybody here on this call is that's one of the things that make sure you folks do by getting involved and giving back when you become, big time like these two.
Yeah, I think I can speak for Rick and I to close out here, because I know that we're going to go to our other gigs. Our giving back, the game's been really good to the both of us, and we're walking on air right now. People say you're on the top of the mountain. We're not even close to the top of the mountain. We're climbing up there and trying to get there every day. But the giving back to make everybody great at this game is all about the little white ball in the game. And this is a passion project for both of us. So we're welcome to help anytime that you want. I know that Rick will offer this as well, but you can figure out how to get our email. And if you ever have a question, reach out and we'll answer it when we have time to do it. It's our pleasure to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank
you, Andy. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.